everybody.
No. Don't know
Everyone's
why.
going, no, everyone's going to think we're interviewing a wounded bear.
Yeah.
But welcome to episode 2 of our podcast.
Episode 2, very exciting. We're back. I mean, they said it wouldn't last.
Exactly. Treading the Boards, the Amateur Theatre podcast, has returned for a second episode. Who knew? Who knew we'd be back?
We're
Thank you.
We're such an instant hit.
I mean, bit of an
I watched
exaggeration.
myself, Ben, which is that sad? Is that sad that I watched us doing a
What
podcast?
did you just like zoom in on your own face?
No, I didn't. No, I like to be able to see you at the same time, but
Well,
it's
I muted
quite
it when
sad.
you spoke,
When you look at the viewing figures, realise that a few of them is me.
Yeah, it's the viewing figures are us. No, I think we've definitely had some interest. We've had quite some lovely feedback. People saying it was really nice and nice to hear from us and our thoughts. And
Ian Keefe very much enjoyed us in his ears.
Yeah, yes, he did indeed. Lots of lovely comments that we're appreciative of, and
we're recording episode 2 on a different day of the week, aren't we, Ben?
I know it doesn't feel that long ago we recorded episode 1.
I know,
so
because
we are recording it.
We're recording on a Sunday, and what have we just said? What did we have to do that we wouldn't normally do on a Sunday?
Actually look half decent.
Actually have a wash, put some proper clothes on, not spend the whole day in our pyjamas.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. It's positive. It's positive at my family. Thank you for the lack of smell.
No, it's nice to feel like you're actually doing something. I mean, I took advantage of the fact that I felt like I washed and I went to Sainsbury's.
Got a nice trip out. Lovely. To get essential shops. What'd you get?
I had to get some stuff ready for tea tonight.
Oh, nice. What you having? No, we can't have a podcast where we ask each other what we have for tea. That's like having a Zoom with the family.
The most dull meeting ever. The most dull podcast ever.
What you're having for you?
But it's a Sunday, so of course it's a roast dinner. But obviously when these guys will be listening to this, well, whenever. But
Friday, whenever they want. Yeah.
Launched on a Friday, so yes, that won't make much sense. But today we're going to be talking to a special guest a little bit later.
Nice.
And we're mainly going to be talking about our topic of the week.
Topic of the week.
It's worrying that we're an amateur theatre podcast, and that's the vocal
skills. I forgot you told me to do that, and I just had to do it then. So that's what I did.
Maybe I'll find an actual music.
Yeah, maybe you should. Don't leave it to me, Ben.
But next week I'll find something different. Yeah. But yes, so we're going to be talking mainly about our topic of the week, which, last week when we introduced ourselves, it was all quite fun. It was quite laid back, talking about life. We're already in episode 2 going in with the serious stuff, Jill, because our topic of the week this week, and I'm going to read it word for word, this is the question that we asked people on our Facebook page. Does amateur theatre help with your mental health? So we're going in with straight mental health, Jill. We're going in with the serious stuff here. I mean,
but it is lockdown, and it is, and therefore it's actually pretty key that we talk about these things.
It's quite essential, I think, and I've had a few conversations this week actually with people that made me realise just how essential this sort of talk is, and obviously I've always thought it's essential that we always talk about our mental health, not even just in lockdown.
Yeah.
But Jill, if you don't mind me asking, how do you think your mental health has been doing during lockdown?
Not too bad, Ben. I am quite a positive sort of glass half full person anyway, so I like to have high energy and fun. So I can find fun in a lot of things, and I've found a lot of fun in lockdown. Whether it's picking a recipe, buying the ingredients, cooking something different, whether it's doing something with you guys, some drama stuff. I have to say some of the highlights have been conversations with the Bodycut Youth gang. Then we've been doing if you could only have one chocolate bar forever and ever, what chocolate bar would it be? If you could only have one bag of crisps forever and ever, what crisps would you have? And if you could only have one soft drink, and just having conversations that with people that you're not seeing all the time, absolutely fab. Coming away laughing, that's the big thing for me, my mental health, well-being. If I'm not laughing, then something's gone very tits up. Am I
Yes.
allowed to say tits up?
I'm going to have to put the explicit. I'm going to have to tick the box that says that it's an explicit in podcast now, Jill.
There you go. I've said tits up. I've said it again. Oops.
Thanks for that.
You, Benjamina?
Yeah, no, I've been okay. I think I've considered myself quite lucky in that I've been able to work during lockdown, and whilst some of it has been teaching from home, it at least keeps me having a bit of a routine.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps. What I've found is I've really struggled the most over the weekends.
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
The
time that usually was when you could be busy, you could go out, you could see everybody, becomes the time when actually you haven't got as much to do.
Yeah, and obviously because like I say, I'm teaching at home at the moment, it sort of feels very like, oh, I'm still at home this weekend, except I don't have anything specific to do. So I've been trying to keep busy. It's been difficult. I've tried to sort of...
did you find the work creeping into, like, you go, oh, I might as well just work then?
Yeah, and I've tried to make a point of being like, weekends, unless I absolutely have to, I try not to do too much work, because we shouldn't have to.
And recover, yeah.
But I find it's to a point where I'm sort of like, okay, I'm a bit bored. I might just get on with that work. I mean, it has a knock-on effect in a positive way, in that it means that I feel less stressed later in the week.
Yeah,
I've got something done. But, I made a to-do list today of things to do, and that helps me in terms of just keeping stress. But I'm like you in that I feel I've always try and be a positive person, but we're human, aren't we? And sometimes it gets to us. And I've spoken
I'm doing the hand move for our listeners on podcast. I'm doing the hand movement of uppy downy, which is kind of lockdown summed up in a hand movement, isn't it? Because at one minute you can be feeling like, I'm okay, this is good, it's all doable, we'll get through it. And another moment, kind of minutes, half hours, days later, you can be feeling absolutely awful and worrying about things.
And like that's sort of, like you say, it's been up and down. And the start, when we first started lockdown back in March, in a way, even though it was sort of scary in terms of it was something really that we'd never experienced before, and obviously people were falling ill, back at the time when there wasn't really any deaths and it was quite a weird thing, it all felt a bit, there was a point where it all felt a bit interesting and exciting. And that sounds a bit wrong to say, it sounds really wrong to say now, but it sort of did, didn't it? Like, you sort of like, this is different, this is weird, having to queue outside Sainsbury's, and then there's a woman behind me wearing what looks like a gas mask. That was interesting. She literally had a whole...
That was before she had to wear masks. It was just literally a woman wearing a gas mask.
Yeah. Then she took it off and it was you. No. But there was all those things that was like, oh, this is interesting. And, and I think people had a really interesting attitude at the start, quite positive, didn't they? And everyone was doing weekly quizzes, and people were doing, they were baking and trying to find...
Going out on the doorstep and clapping.
Yeah, and people sort of, it was a nice, very British spirit.
Yeah.
Which I think people really sort of did quite nicely. And then, obviously, as we've gone on, the novelty...
It's gone and on is the phrase, isn't it? Yeah.
The novelty certainly wore off. And this time round, we're coming up to close to a year when we went into the first lockdown. And I think, I understand people are struggling. And this week I've spoken to a few people, just catching up, who are struggling quite a bit. And and then I sort of feel a little bit guilty for being like, because like I said before, I feel quite lucky. I've got a great school that supports me, that's fantastic, a lovely team. And I'm there going, cool, it gets a bit boring at home, and they're having real problems and concerns and struggles, and I feel a little bit guilty about feeling like that.
Oh yeah. But everybody has to experience it in their own way, Ben. And what you as a friend do is you're there and supporting people when they need it. But the key thing is the talking about it, and the key thing is saying what you need and where you're at, and being okay about that. And again, that's where amateur theatre can be really, really helpful, because actually we've got outlets from stuff, we've got opportunities to talk to people, we've got common interests, and that just really is a helpful start point for friendships and the like.
Absolutely. And you're right, talking is the most important thing, and that's why talking about this opening on a podcast. You know, I encourage anyone to speak up and talk, even if you don't know us very well. Have a chat with us. We'll talk. I'll talk to you.
Talk to anyone. We will.
You know, as long as if it helps, you know, people are definitely always happy to talk, I think, and people just need to feel that like they can talk.
Yeah.
But in terms of amateur theatre, then,
indeed, which is why we are here.
I think you know what, like you just said, it's an outlet, isn't it? It's a chance to be around other people who share a very similar interest to you, and it's a chance, I know for us when we do amateur theatre, to be a bit mad and be a bit crazy and let off steam.
Yeah, and oh my God, have a laugh.
And have a laugh, not be so serious.
Yes.
And I think that's important. And you know, regardless of what your hobby is, whether it be
sport or
as long as you as long as it's like a release, as long as it's something that you find joy in, then you go for it. You know.
Exactly. Absolutely. Go on, what you got a comment for someone?
Go on, Jill, you go.
I was only going to say one of the big things as well for me, and particularly for the young people that we have in various groups that we're involved with, is I always think it's quite nice that actually I have conversations with people who are not my kids. So I'm an adult that another child of 14, 15, 16, 17, whatever, might think is okay to talk to, because that's one of the things I always think of, you know, as a parent, is I really hope if potentially that my kids don't want to talk to me or my husband, that actually they've got other people that they might think are okay to talk to.
Absolutely. And yeah, we do. I think the people that run these theatre groups and companies, we have a responsibility. And I don't think that's just for kids, for young people, for adults as well. We have a responsibility, we have a duty of care. And you're right, I think you need to make sure you're a person who people find approachable and can talk to. And because you're sort of there and quite fun, and you're not necessarily, sometimes in some cases, family, you know, people will feel comfortable talking to you. People will sometimes say things that you might pick up on and go, oh, I think there's a problem there. You've got to be really aware of that sort of stuff. So yeah, we do definitely have a duty of care. We asked, obviously, this question about amateur theatre mental health on our Facebook page, with some nice responses. Please, you know, join our Facebook page, Treading the Boards, the Amateur Theatre Podcast, and get involved in the conversation. We'd really love to hear what you have to say. It gives us stuff to talk about. It means it's not just us. Talking.
I mean, to be honest, I'm quite dull, so he's gonna. He needs other impetus.
I mean, you're not, Jill. You're lovely. So everyone who has sort of really commented has been really positive about, you know, the need for amateur theatre. I'm going to read sort of some extracts. Being part of a group, sharing the same interests and goals is great for both adults and children. As we were sort of just saying, you know, it helps everyone. It's not just a youth theatre thing. Offers the opportunity to form friendships and share experiences. And, you know, I mean, I look at my sort of group of friends, and the majority of my close friends come from doing theatre, doing drama, either both at school and, you know, as a student when I was a student, or studying it for my degree, or from my drama groups. So, and again, it's because we have similar interests, isn't it?
Yeah.
Performing brings with it adrenaline, which is fantastic for batting away feelings of sadness and negativity.
I know, but it also reminds me when you say that of the actual drop you feel at the end of a show. Yeah. That kind of the next day going, oh, and then and which is where actually the groups that go on locally, where it doesn't stop, where it carries on. So Yobbos is great, but that I know at the end of Yobbos that you guys who've been more. I mean, I've been involved slightly as backstage and things, but my Katie, who's done some of those week-long shows, the next week we always have to go on holiday so that she's not too sad. Quick, get her out of the country so that she doesn't get too sad. Yeah,
there is obviously always a drop at the end of the show. I mean, with Yobbos, which is obviously our summer school, as Jill was saying, we try and announce next year's show at the end, which is then like an exciting thing that everyone then has a bit of a buzz about. But obviously that's not always possible for every group to announce the next show. It can feel a bit like a bit of a downer. People sort of also saying how being involved in drama groups has been a saviour for them. and some people saying, the recent opportunities that some groups have been providing during lockdown have been a real saving grace. So that, we've obviously been doing a lot of that. So I'm quite pleased that people have found that useful.
I mean, having that pattern to the week as well, when you're used to being in drama groups, so we ATC always meet on a Tuesday and Buddy Cop always meet on a Friday. It's just been nice that actually we've been able to keep some of that pattern during summer lockdown.
Some other quotes from our post. Drama in any way, shape or form is the perfect antidote for life. Wouldn't be without it and all the fantastic, wonderful and kind friends I've made whilst being a part of an amazing drama family. And that I think, it is one of those hobbies that you really do form connections with people, because even when you're being silly and doing a panto, you have to explore a range of emotions, and you have to be quite vulnerable at times and put yourself out there and go for it, and you can't do that unless you're comfortable with the people you're with.
Absolutely.
A couple
especially
more.
The way we have to look sometimes in panto. As I've often said to some cast members, this isn't about going out and looking your best, this is going out and looking like you need to look.
Someone said to me the other day, I showed them a picture of our last panto, Jill, where I was the evil queen.
All right. And was I Mrs. Overall in some form?
That's when you were like a Mrs. Overall type character, yeah. I was, and they looked at that picture and went, talk about looks, and went, I think that's the best you've ever looked, Ben, with no sense of irony or anything. I was like, you realise I'm in drag, right? You realise I'm a woman there. You realise that's not... I can't replicate that for my day out. Well, I can, but I'm not keen to. Anyway, okay.
Very good.
Very, very kind. A backhanded compliment.
One of the other things that is nice is that sense of sharing something. And so again, for myself and my kids, whenever we've done drama stuff together, they've both been in drama groups with me, and Katie's doing drama GCSE. It's just lovely to have a similar interest, and you don't have to be all over. I don't have to go everywhere she goes when she does drama, but it is nice that occasionally, like Friday lunchtime, we sat together and watched the Mischief Theatre guys doing a Q&A on YouTube. Just, no pressure. I just went, I'm going to watch this. Do you want to watch it? And we just sat and watched it. And that's really nice to have something in common that actually doesn't annoy her to do something with me is lovely. And whether it be, if you're not a parent that's like as nuts as we are and into it, you can still get involved if your kids are doing something with amateur theatre by helping backstage, doing the costumes, or being the person that comes and stands at the top of the ladder. We've had some amazing interactions with kids' parents who've come along and really got involved, and just that sharing something with your kids is so nice.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree.
I mean, your mum's involved as well, so you're still doing that, sharing it with your parents.
Exactly. A couple of others then. And actually this one's an interesting one because it's not just about performing, it's about going to watch amateur theatre. So not all people can afford big theatre prices, and there are many excellent local groups who perform first-class productions. I think that's important as well. Just, as this person says, just going to watch something should be an uplifting experience.
And also it's, one of the key things in that, and that's a bit like other hobbies you were saying earlier, Ben, is to lose yourself. And you don't have to think about, what you're buying at Sainsbury's tomorrow or how long the pandemic will go on. I think you lose yourself in whatever happening you're watching. That can be just really beneficial, a real healing time, not to be thinking about other things that might be stressing you.
Absolutely. Last one then, a couple of points from this post here. Similar to what we were saying about meeting new people and providing a safe space, an escape from everyday troubles of life alongside friends. It especially helps young people as it encourages them to spend their time helping their community, which I think is right. It's a community experience, and it just provides that. It provides something to do. It gives you something. It gives you something else to do outside of perhaps school, which I do think is really important. Obviously, those are the positives, and we're going to invite our special guest on in a moment to give their thoughts. But I do want to sort of talk about, because I think we need to provide both sides of it. Okay, so I'm going to say something a bit controversial now, Jill.
Stop it.
I do
No,
think
don't stop it. Carry on.
We're going in deep, Jill, with the second podcast. I do think there are times where it can have a negative impact on your mental health. And I know that, especially as a production team member, it can get quite stressful, very stressful during show week. I think people sometimes, very rare, but sometimes people who aren't necessarily being the most helpful or understanding of what each person is doing. You know, I do find when I involved in a production, it just feel a bit like a second job, but one that I'm not necessarily paid for. And I think some people don't necessarily appreciate that sometimes. And
I find it best, Ben, when I'm directing, to lose your voice completely. Because then other people really do appreciate it, and you have to write everything down on a piece of paper and hold it up like a sign.
Nobody wants to argue with somebody.
Or you get your friend in to speak for you. Ben, could you just speak for me, please?
That has happened. I'll just shout this bit for you, shall I? From the top. But you know, I think sometimes you have to be in the right state of mind to do this. I wouldn't say jumping into a production team or you know a big commitment like that is something you should do if you feel that your mental health isn't in that right state, and that's not a judgment on anyone.
Part of that, Ben, as well, and I think we've had to do it a few times, is you've got to be really honest with the cast and everyone else involved that there are times when you might shout, and it's not because you are really cross, it's because you care so much. You know, we always at Bodycut, we talk about this a lot, that, you know, when we shout, it's because we know they could be better. Yeah. And we're not shouting for us, we're shouting for them to help them really kind of understand that it's down to you. When you're part of the production team, you don't go on the stage quite often. I mean, at ATC, sometimes we do both, but normally you're not on the stage. Therefore, you're really keen for people on the stage to get how great they are and to really live, you know, fulfill their potential while they're on the stage. And that's often why we get a little bit shouty.
Yeah, I think sometimes that stress, the reason we feel stressed sometimes to get to that place is because we're so passionate about what we're doing. We want it to be good. And if we didn't care, we wouldn't be stressed about it because we'd be like, oh, it is what it is. And so it's passion, but you need to be in the right state of mind. Show week, regardless of if you're a performer or a production team, can be stressful.
One of my lovely leader friends from Bodycut actually admitted on a Zoom call that she's missing shouting at the kids because they're all so quiet on Zoom that we don't need to shout anymore. Mandy, that's you.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you don't always have to shout. We don't always shout at people. Sometimes they just have to raise our voices because we're in a big theatre. It's just trying to project your voice. But yes. We're going to invite...
Is it guest time? Is it guest time, Ben?
We are going to invite our special guest on, our first guest of our podcast, to talk with you now. And so please welcome our special guest for episode 2, and that is Jamie Cox.
Jamie!
So welcome, Jamie. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome. How are you?
Very, very well. Thank you. We've been talking about mental health this podcast and talking about mental health in terms of amateur theatre as well. How have you found, as long as you don't mind me asking, how have you found your mental health?
Straight in there, Ben. No mincing about, like, who are you? What do you do? Welcome to our Treading the Boards podcast. Straight in with how's your mental health, Jamie?
I've got a settee. Shall I lie down?
Yeah, you're going to need to.
I'm basically Jeremy Paxman of the podcast world now. So straight in. How have you found? Well, we'll talk about all that stuff in a minute, Joe. How's your mental health been over this lockdown? How have you found it?
Over this particular lockdown, it's been very tough. The lockdowns before were obviously quite difficult. I'm in a position where I have to go to work every single day, but coming to this third lockdown or whatever number it is, it's been a lot tougher. And I think one of those reasons were I've missed interacting with people, and especially this time of year because, like yourselves, you know, with theatre work, I'd be heavily involved in pantomime, which would usually be around this time of the.
Oh no, you wouldn't.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't actually. To be fair, I'd be just sitting around with everybody else because I've done all I can by that point. But yeah, so that's been quite difficult for me. But yeah, you know, it's good to have family and friends around you at all times.
What is it you do in the real world, Jamie?
I'm an operations manager, which is really boring. But it means I'm lucky because I get to see people every single day. I have a team of people who work for me, which I look after, and you know, mental health, their well-being has been one of the biggest things over the last year.
Absolutely. Same for me. I have a team, and just making sure that you're checking in and spotting without seeing them, spotting when they need the support. That's the hard bit.
And that is a tough one, isn't it? It's when you're all working remotely.
Yeah.
And you just have to look for those little telltale signs, like somebody hasn't commented on something, or someone's not replied to an email, or you know, you've spoken to somebody on the phone and they just don't sound 100%. They're the key things you've got to listen to. Try and work out. Yeah, it's tough, very tough.
And know that because it's tough for you, and if you're experiencing highs and lows, then everybody else is.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things to try and remember, you know. But I've always been quite keen on making sure that, because when I speak to people and they want to talk about their mental health, they always say, "Well, there's worse people off than me," and I say, "Well, you know, that's belittling your feelings, because you are equally as important as anybody else. So you need to have your feelings dealt with. Yes, things are worse for other people, but that's not stopping you feeling how you feel."
That's interesting, Jimmy. We were just in our little introduction just before you joined us. I sort of said the same thing, actually. I said, you know, I feel like this, but there are people who are worse than me. And you're right. You have to sort of acknowledge your own thoughts and feelings and mental health before you can necessarily know how to be in a good position to help others, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, I posted something on my Facebook group today, which was a picture of a battery nearly empty and a person. And you know, if you let yourself, you're not going to let your phone battery run out. So why let yourself run out? And I've sort of challenged people, you know, to take care of themselves this week and start, you know, focusing on themselves a bit more, because we do tend to focus on others, and I know I do particularly, and I get run down because I'm trying to look after everybody else.
Jamie, tell us about that Facebook group. What is it?
Off the Couch. It's a group I set up well before the pandemic. And it was one because I've struggled with mental health for many years, and being the manly man that I am, I tend not to talk about it, or you know, we just let things go. You know, well, exactly, Ben, as you said, you know, there's people worse off than me. So I set up a group, and I called on a couple of people from the village, and we sort of got together, and we had a couple of meetings, and we were going to do sessions where we all meet up and just have a drink. Nothing, because I'm not a trained counsellor or anything like that, but it was just where people can reach out and just be with similar people. And then the pandemic hit, and the Off the Couch took a bit more of a life than I expected it to do. And we're just short of 400 members now, and you know, I just try to post something positive, and you get some really lovely feedback. You know, it's really just there to keep people engaged, and you know, keep people involved in what's going on in a day to day.
Feeling part of something.
Yes, feeling part of, you know, because I miss my friends, and I did it quite selfishly as well, to be honest with you, because I post on there to make myself feel better. And you know, I get messages from people saying thank you very much. You know, one guy messaged me over Christmas and said, I haven't been able to see my girls, but your group and other things have just kept me going. And that made me feel really good. So you get that buzz.
There's a really nice, because obviously both me and Angela are on that group as well. There's a really nice sense of community there, which is what we were talking about. You know, the joy of being part of amateur theatre gives you that sense of community, which obviously during this lockdown all the lockdowns we're missing. And I think, you know, what you just said about, you know, the fact that you're not a trained counsellor, I think people need that sometimes, though. People want to just chat with a mate or someone they feel like just wants to chat rather than someone who it almost sort of becomes all very official if they have to feel like they talk to a counsellor. So people do feel more comfortable just chatting with each other, and more open, don't they?
I think so, yeah. And I've got a couple of friends from the village that I live in, and we meet up once a week, go for a walk, one-on-one,
One-on-one.
2 metre
Yeah, that's
distance, and we walk the dogs and we just chat.
Yeah, lovely.
And that's really just it. And I message some people quite often, just asking me how I am, and then we go into a chat about how they are.
It's lovely.
So what about your amateur theatre experience, Jamie? And what positives have you had from that?
Well, over the years,
how many years have you been treading the boards? That's the title of our podcast.
I know, it's very aptly named. So I've been involved in amateur dramatics for many years, or performing, because
Got some guitars there.
I do a lot of gigging, and I've done that since I was about 16 or 17. So yeah, 10 years ago. And then I got involved in Adderby Theatre Workshop probably about 8 years ago. I did it for a couple of years, and I realised I'm actually terrible at acting. So then I became a director, and I directed the whole things. So I didn't have to. I just made cameo appearances, which were all funny. So it's just the way I do things. But I've always just enjoyed that, because you just get to be with people and you get to just forget about everything for a while, don't you?
Absolutely.
That's,
You've got kids as well, haven't you, Jamie? Are they involved in the amateur theatre world?
Well, my children.
Yes, we know the answer to this, but the others might not.
Yes. My daughter used to be quite heavily involved, but she went off to university, and she's not really doing much that more. But my son, yes, that's all his life. In fact, at any minute now, you'll probably hear him singing. Once he's done the washing up, singing his theatre singing, and he's hoping to go to theatre school as well. So, university. So.
Obviously, your children are quite are performers. Your wife performs as well. How does that help? Does it help having a whole sort of family that is like to perform?
He's asking, are you the family Von Trapp? That's what he's asking.
Well, I wouldn't say that. There are 4 of us. One of us isn't a particularly great singer, but I'm not going to say who that is. So not the Von Trapps, definitely not the Von Trapps. But, my wife, she tries really hard. But yeah, it is really good fun. I mean, it does have its ups and downs, because, especially as a director, people don't tend to listen to you half the time anyway, as you well know. And then when it's your own family, it can be quite tough. But it's good fun.
Is it tricky? Is it tricky when you have to cast your family?
Yes.
Yes.
I always find casting the hardest bit, because that somebody's going to be annoyed and upset. But what we always try to do is just to make sure that everybody gets something, and everybody is involved. So when I first started at Adderby Theatre Workshop, the kids were more of the younger generation were more of a prop. They'd come on stage, smile, and then leave the stage. So me and the guy who was writing with us decided we're going to change that, and we made sure all the kids, the young theatre groups were doing something. They had lines. They would come on and do something, do a terrible dance, which I choreographed. And then I set up the Adderby Theatre Workshop youth group as well, and we put on about 4 or 5 performances as well, which was just for under 16s, I think it was.
That's lovely. I think it's an interesting one, isn't it, when you're part of a group that has adults and young people involved, because actually, if you look at a lot of group, we're lucky that we have a lot of theatre in our area, but a lot of them are either sort of aimed for either adults or children usually, whereas I know Adderby Theatre and our theatre company Avocet sort of has a variety, and it's really tricky to have that balancing act, because you want to have we've tried to do the same as you, in that we try and give everyone, if someone wants a speaking part, we try and give them, even if it's minor, we try and give them something, we try and give them their chance to shine. But it's a really careful balancing act you sometimes have to go through, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is tough, and I'll be straight up honest. I prefer dealing with kids than I deal with adults. So that I find easier, and that goes. So when I was a Cub Scout leader for 21 years as well. So I've always, maybe I'm the same mentality of them. I don't know, but
we couldn't possibly comment, Jamie.
No, I know. I could see that going through you. I could see
no, that's fine.
That's fine. But yeah, it is a balancing act. because you get some of the older members that don't like the fact that the younger members are getting all the lines. But you try and work it both ways as well. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you joined in with us at ATC with our virtual Christmas do as a talent. What do we call it? ATC
All together at Christmas.
All together at Christmas. Thanks, Ben. Sorry, blocked it out. How was that? What was it like recording stuff virtually?
it was really good. I really enjoyed it, actually. I think I first signed up to annoy Charlie a little bit.
It's
But, just a smidgen, just to annoy him, so he wouldn't know what to do. But actually, I really enjoyed it. I think you guys have got so much. You have this attitude of fun, and that's what I've tried to bring to Adderbury. It's because it's great. All these shows have got to be good and really spot on for the audience. But actually, my key for them, for the actors, is to just have fun, because if they have fun, the audience has fun. And if they're paying basically for the rights to do this, because they have to pay membership fees and all that sort of stuff. So why not enjoy it? And that's what I noticed with you guys. And I've never done anything online before, so that was really interesting to do. So I've actually, I'll tell you now, I'm actually stole the idea, and we're doing one for Adderbury as well now.
Oh, good. Excellent news.
So,
excellent news.
I'm not quite as talented as Ben on the mixing and things like that, so that's going to be interesting. But
you have to speak nicely to him. That's what I do. I do this kind of slightly pathetic thing where I go, "Oh, man, please help me with my netball club. Need to do a song. Would you help me?" Like that, and then he goes, "Oh yeah, okay, Jill." Like that. And then you have to take him booze afterwards. I mean, it's a bit like the old-fashioned barter system.
Yeah.
I don't demand booze. Let's just be clear. You just kindly bring it over.
I do bring you booze, yes. Whenever. That's my way of supporting you during lockdown. Some booze.
But I think that's I'm glad that things are still carrying on. I think it's so important. That's why we tried to do our virtual shows, and it's nice to keep things continuing, especially when we don't know when we're going to be able to get back in person. Even now, I came and watched your last pantomime that you did just before lockdown.
He's going to give you a review now, Jamie. I hope you're ready.
These are my notes.
Which one was that? I can't remember what it was. That was so long ago.
Dick Whittington.
Oh yeah. Oh blimey.
Dick Whittington? Yes, it was Dick Whittington. It does feel like ages ago, doesn't it? But it was, I suppose. But I came to watch that one, and I thought, because that was my first sort of experience watching Adderbury Theatre, and I got sort of a real feel of that fun side, and you're right, I'm glad you said that we try and inject that into ATC as much as possible, that we try and, if we're not enjoying it, then the audience won't enjoy it. And I could feel that sort of same feel when I was watching your shows. You could tell everyone on the stage was just really just enjoying themselves, and then as a result we enjoyed ourselves.
Well, that's lucky. I think I was in there.
So important.
I think that's one of the ones I had a cameo in as well.
Did, as a certain president, I believe.
Oh, that's right. I was Donald Orange.
Was Donald Orange? Yes, very, very amusing. Very amusing.
And what are we going to do without Donald as the butt of the jokes going forward?
We've still got Boris.
We've still got. Oh, thank God, we've still.
Unless be political, I'm not sure.
No, I've said tits already, but so we've done tits and politics. So episode 2 is going really well, Ben.
I didn't expect me to be the least controversial. Usually, I'm the one who put in my foot. But I think everything you're doing, Jamie, and the group and the Facebook group, I really enjoy looking at it and reading it and seeing all the different quizzes. Even though the Facebook group isn't necessarily a theatre group, it feels. I do appreciate that it almost feels like a bit of you having to perform a bit as as quiz master, and as showing that you're willing to just go for it and put yourself out there. I think that's that all comes, doesn't it, from that ability to perform a little bit, and it's very much appreciated, I think, by many people. Well,
I just want people to just enjoy the time that we have. It's easy to get settled in and bogged down with the fact that you can't go to the pub on a Saturday night, but there are other things to do, and we've got to keep moving, and you've got to keep doing it. You've got doing what you can.
And we've got to look ahead and be like, eventually we will be back.
Yeah, what are you looking forward to, Jamie, when things get back to?
Well, if you'd asked me a couple of months ago, I would have said looking forward to going to the pub, but I don't think I am anymore. I've built a bar in my garage. So
Pubs don't need them.
So I really don't know. I think cinema. I really miss the cinema. Strangely enough, and I didn't think I'd ever say that because I always enjoyed going to the pictures, but I've really missed going to the cinema and theatre and going to live shows as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, getting back to watching your rest of your family on the stage and you on the stage.
Yeah, well, I not those days. I think are quite over. But I'll stick to the singing and playing guitar. That's the easier bit for me.
Maybe we'll.
Should we end with a song? Maybe we should end with a song. No, sorry, Jamie. I wouldn't do that.
I haven't got my guitar. Sorry.
Put him on the spot.
Yeah.
Well, we hope.
Yeah.
We hope that we'll be able to convince you maybe to join us again on the stage, Jamie, because we enjoyed having you involved in our last production. And thank you again for everything you've been doing. And tell everyone who's listening, just in case they're not a member of the Facebook group, what's it called and how can they find it on Facebook?
It's called Off the Couch, and it's just search for Off the Couch or find me, and then it's one of my groups. That's really the best way to say it. Just Off the Couch.
Off the Couch.
Or Instagram. We do have an Instagram page.
Oh, cool. Oh, I'll have to follow that one as well. I'll make sure it will be on our Facebook page as well. We'll share it so people can join as well. But thank you very much for
joining us on our podcast.
No, thank you very much for asking, and thanks for all the work you guys have done during all these lockdowns. It's been brilliant. It's been brilliant to watch.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you to everyone for listening as well, or watching, depending on how you are streaming this. Reminder that you can obviously listen to this on all good podcast streaming services, including Spotify, or you can watch the video version if you want to see all of our beautiful faces and judge our homes. I mean, that's why I've got a backdrop up of nothing.
Jamie's had the good clean before. Yeah, that's it. Cover up the cleaning goods. Yeah.
But you can stream that on our Facebook page, Treading the Boards, the Amateur Theatre Podcast, or our YouTube channel, which is called the same name. But until then, Gill, thank you very much.
Benjamina, thank you very much. Jamie Cox, thank you very much.
And we shall see you next week with a brand new topic. Keep an eye out for that so you can have your say. And a brand new special guest. See you next week. Bye-bye.